we had linemen downfield a lot, but we weren't catching it. And we in officiating had to end up making some adjustments, change our mechanics in terms of what are we looking at and when are we looking at it. So the reason you may see that being called more is simply because the officials have gotten really better at seeing that action.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Wisdom Wednesday presented by DraftKings, with the wisdom coming from longtime NFL Senior VP of Officiating, Walt Anderson. Several of you hit me up on social media at Ross Tucker NFL with questions you wanted me to ask Walt. Well, guess what? I got to a couple of them. You're going to be very, very excited to hear your names as I ask Walt your questions. And I drink some Labatt Blue Lights this weekend with my friends and live a life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly beer. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Well, I've been looking forward to this one. I actually sent out a message on Twitter at Ross Tucker NFL asking for any questions that you guys had for today's guest, Walt Anderson. He was on the field for a long time as a head referee. Then he has become more recently the senior VP of officiating for the NFL. Now he's the official NFL rules analyst. You see the shield behind him there. He does a terrific job with the preseason seminars. I think I was on 3 of them, one for the preseason games for the Eagles, one for radio for Western One, and one for CBS. So I heard Walt go through a lot of the rule changes this year a number of times. Walt, truly appreciate the time. I think this is really valuable for my listeners and the people that check us out on DraftKings Network as well. I guess I'll start with the biggest one, which is the dynamic kickoff. You know, I was a little worried, Walt, after those first 2 primetime games that it was going to be exclusively touchbacks, but it seems like the data indicates we are getting a decent amount more returns than we thought we would be. What's just kind of your thoughts as to how the rule has played out so far and for the league office, and whether or not the dynamic kickoff is accomplishing what you guys were hoping it would?
Yeah, you're very observant there, Ross, because we were kind of noticing the same things. At week 1, it seemed like the primetime games were all touchback. And then Sunday afternoon, I mean, we were having returns. So we had a touchdown on Sunday afternoon. So it's, what we've seen for the first 2 weeks is the number of returns have actually doubled from the first 2 weeks from last year. Our return rate last year was about 15% of kickoffs, and it's up to just a little bit over 30% this year. So from that standpoint, we're certainly moving in the right direction. Obviously, and you're aware of this, the goal here was to try to A, make the kickoff safer, and B, make the kickoff more relevant, to bring the kickoff return back into the game. And so far, through the first 2 weeks, the league feels very positive about at least the direction that we're going. We're still waiting on the injury return. Obviously, that'll be a significant factor just in terms of how effective this rule change has been.
I don't watch every special team snap from every game. I haven't noticed any injuries yet on special teams. And I don't think I told you this, but my career ended on the 4-man wedge back in 2007. I herniated a disc in my neck and bruised my spinal cord. So I'm all in favor of making this play safer. And I was on the call, Walt, in Buffalo week 1, where we had one kick didn't get into the landing zone. We had one kick went out of bounds. We had a long return. We had a return for a touchdown. And twice we had a 12th guy on the field because it was so windy in Buffalo. Yeah. We had the 12th guy that came on to hold it, which brings up, I thought it was cool that I was making history, first game in NFL history where they could have 12 guys. I am curious, though, what's the rule for what that guy has to do? Because it was a punter, and he kind of jogged off, and the first one was a touchback anyway. But like, what if the guy is slow to get off the field? I mean, just I'm curious about the 12th man rule.
Well, he really is. He's allowed to come out there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's just to hold the football. And then he's got to get off the field. And he's actually designated as a non-player compared to the other 11 players on the kicking team. So by being a non-player, if he doesn't get off the field and in any way interferes with play, then you have the potential of the palpably unfair act, coming into play, and that really allows for just about any type of enforcement, including if he got in the way of a returner, the officials could actually award a touchdown. So, when we created that, we actually, it was really after the rule was passed in March by ownership that we had to come up with a way in a situation where the ball was falling off the tee, how do we get somebody to hold it? And nobody wanted to take one of the 10 up front and move them back, because that then changes your cover, for the kicking team. So that's what we came up with.
All right, let's move on to another new rule for this year. It's the hip drop tackle. Got a lot of attention on Sunday night. Joe Mixon, the Texans running back, was tackled by TJ Edwards. Looked like it was probably a hip drop tackle. Mixon wasn't happy. He talked about it after the game. Said, why are we going to make new rules and then we're not going to throw the flag? Your thoughts on first of all, that play and whether or not it was a hip drop tackle, and then whether or not you think it should have been flagged.
Yeah, we look at every play there's about 2,500 plays every week. All of them end up being reviewed. Obviously, you get high profile plays, like the Mixon play in the game that night, and you end up having to evaluate that. And there's a process that the league goes through every week. And when you end up with actions, whether a flag is thrown or not, because there's now a rule in place, then discipline can be handed out if it's appropriate during the week. And so that play, along with there are several others that we're in the process of fully evaluating. And if it's determined that a foul, did occur, then the league certainly has the ability to levy a fine if they feel like that's appropriate.
So I think it's interesting because being on those seminars, it was pretty clear that you guys didn't really want the officials to throw the flag unless they were 100% certain that it was a hip drop tackle, because there's other tackles that can look like hip drop tackles, but really aren't in terms of the unweighting and the swiveling of the body. And so the sense I got from those meetings is that you're going to try to deter that behavior as much as possible through the fine process and the discipline process that way, like has happened with defenseless hits, on receivers or quarterbacks, etc. I guess the question is how obvious does it have to be, or how blatant does it have to be for them to actually put the flag down?
Well, yeah, it's a couple of points you made, Ross, are absolutely true. You have to have a rule in place in order to have any kind of discipline, either during the game or after the game. So that was the first step that we had to go through. And it's really probably not accurate to say that we don't want officials to throw the flag. We just want them to be right when they do throw the flag. Because the reality, and I know you've seen a lot of these videos, we've shared these all with the clubs and other members of the media, actions that on the surface would look like, oh, that's a hip drop tackle. When you look at it, doesn't have all of the four elements that are required for it. And in real time, they look so close to what could be a foul that official on the field has one shot from one angle in real time. And we just want to make sure that if he sees it and he sees all of the elements, yes, then throw the flag. But if not, there's another means now that we have the rule in place for us to hopefully deal with it and in the end change behavior.
So it's interesting. I asked on social media for questions that people would have for you. I thought this was an interesting one from one of my listeners, Jake Galley. He said, why does it feel like some NFL points of emphasis, such as illegal formation or illegal man downfield, there's a lot of flags thrown for those points of emphasis, but then other points of emphasis like the hip drop, for example, the flags are not thrown. Does that make sense, Walt? It seems like some points of emphasis, there's a lot of flags, other points of emphasis, there aren't any.
Well, and that's a good question that Jake has asked. And the reality is every year the competition committee ends up taking a look at what's the state of the game. What are the areas that maybe we may not even need to make rule changes, but we end up needing to focus upon. Jake mentioned ineligibles downfield. Whenever we ended up with the evolution of the play action, and that type of style of offense, now we had linemen downfield a lot, but we weren't catching it. And we in officiating had to end up making some adjustments, change our mechanics in terms of what are we looking at and when are we looking at it, and be able to make those adjustments. So the reason you may see that being called more is simply because the officials have gotten really better at seeing that action, because it has been emphasized by the competition committee. The thing about the hip drop tackle is you haven't seen, we've been in 2 weeks now, plus the preseason, but you're more than likely not going to see that because it takes there's a learning curve for the officials, just like there's a learning curve for players and coaches to get used to seeing it and make sure that you're seeing it accurately before you throw that flag.
By the way, I know Monday night the Eagles got called for it 3 times, and those were all blatant. I mean, those guys were like 5 yards downfield on Monday night. They have to call. I know Eagles fans aren't happy about it, but I mean that they know the rule, and it was not even close on any of those.
All of our teams, they do those RPO schemes. It's all about timing. It's all about reads and so forth. And a lot of times it's not always the lineman's fault, because there might be a delay, and he's coached up very often to make your initial block, hesitate, and then get on downfield, because more than likely we've either handed off or we've thrown it quickly. And when that doesn't happen, then you end up getting down there. And the officials now, who are the line of scrimmage officials, who historically used to work in the pocket area and the line of scrimmage, those officials we've moved them. They're downfield. There's 5 officials really working the passing game in the NFL now, where there used to only be 3, but it was the same number of officials. It's just the game has evolved, and we've had to evolve with it.
So this is a good one from Bob Greenberg, who actually he's a high school football beat writer out near Erie. I know him because I follow Pennsylvania high school football, Walt, and he has a question about replay assist and when you can use it and when you can't use it, which I think is excellent, Walt, because I got to be honest with you. I know that what my understanding is that replay assist can only be used for specific objective items, right? But then I guess he specifically pointed out the punch from Alshear, the linebacker for the Texans, that threw a punch at the running back on the sideline for the Bears. And the question is, why can't replay assist, which obviously sees that, say, yep, that was a punch, that guy gets a penalty or is thrown out or whatever? So if you could dive into replay assist, Walt, and why it can't jump in a situation like that, that'd be great.
Sure. And Bob, probably the simplest thing I would tell you is the biggest difference between replay assist and replay reviews relative to fouls is replay assist is really designed to help the officials with specific objective information to at times help them pick up a flag, but not to put one down. Whereas there are specific plays that are reviewable that replay can actually create a foul. An example would be 12 men on the field. Another example might be if a receiver goes out of bounds and he comes back in the field and he's the first one to touch a pass. That's illegal touching of the pass. Those are specific rules that the league has given replay the ability to create a foul. Replay assist is not designed for that purpose. It's really just to use technology, to use video to help the officials with something that the rest of the world can see as obvious. The ball skipped on the ground. It's not a catch. The receiver's second foot was out of bounds. He's down by contact. He needs to be, the ball needs to be blown dead at that spot. It's those types of things that replay assist. And this is our 4th year of replay assist. And every year the competition committee has looked at, are there additional areas that we can continue to use evolving technologies, specifically video, to help the officials officiate a game that it is fast and just keeps getting faster and more complex every year. So that's really the biggest difference between replay assist and replay review. And the question on the potential for a foul that might occur, the rules just do not allow either replay assist or replay review to create those types of unnecessary roughness fouls unless the officials already have a flag on the ground. That was changed about 5 years ago, that if a flag is on the ground, then the league office can end up looking at other things to be sure that there might be somebody else that might have thrown a punch, and they can be added to that foul. But right now, the rules just don't allow the league office to create a foul in that area.
The thing I think is interesting about that, Walt, is that, like, I think that they used replay assist Monday night on Saquon Barkley. It might have been a 2-point conversion where he kind of got stuffed and then he reached the ball across. And I think they said after replay assist, the ruling on the field is a touchdown or 2-point conversion, whatever. That was a scoring play, so that wouldn't have been a challenge
that
anyway.
Would actually be reviewable. That was actually reviewed, and the replay official did confirm that he did extend the ball over the goal line, so the 2-point try was successful. The replay assist happened just before the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, where he was originally ruled down and he made the first down, but it was clear and obvious that when his knee was down, he was about a half a yard short of the line to gain. That's when replay assist was used in that game.
So how do you decide whether replay assist comes in or whether the coach has to challenge it? I guess is an interesting question there, Walt. Because back in the day, it would be like a coach would have to challenge that. Now, sometimes the coach doesn't have to challenge it because replay assist picks it up.
Yeah, there's really 3 areas, Ross. The first is, how clear and obvious is it? Replay assist is not designed to get into really detailed analysis where you've got to look at a lot of different angles. It's got to be those things that just jump out at you. He's clearly down and he's clearly short of the line to gain, or the ball clearly skipped on the ground from that standpoint. The second is the limitations we've got, or we really can't assist once we get below 20 seconds on the play clock. And that restriction was really put in by the competition committee just to have some guidelines that could, because we want the process to be standardized in each game. We don't want, one replay official to work through assistance in a certain way in one game, and it's being done in a different way. And then the third element is really, you're very much dependent upon the pace of the game relative to replay assist. So if a team is in a hurry up and they get up to the line and they're ready to snap the ball, we can't assist after that point. So, and that's really, it ends up putting, Ross, a lot more burden on the defensive coach than it does the offensive coach, because the offense controls the pace of the game. If they wanted to wait a little bit, they could wait up to 20 seconds to see, hey, maybe they'll give us that catch if it's obvious that the second foot was in bounds and initially it was ruled out of bounds. But whenever the offense is in that hurry up mode with the play clock running, sometimes they're up at the line with 29 seconds on the play clock. And if we haven't had an opportunity to see something clear and obvious by then the coach would be forced to challenge it, which you know as well as I, that does end up happening, and they have to end up throwing that red challenge flag.
The last one I have for you, Walt, which has been clear a couple times this year already, and I think it might have started a year ago in terms of being a point of emphasis, but there have been a number of hits, in particular on quarterbacks near the sideline, that almost always would have been flagged before, right? But now they're not. And I know that's been a point of emphasis, that basically until, correct me if I'm wrong, until that quarterback's foot touches the white out of bounds, he is still in bounds and he can get hit as hard as anybody else, right?
Correct. Yeah, as long as the hit's legal, from the standpoint of, not making, say, a helmet to helmet type hit. But yes, you're either in bounds or you're out of bounds. And if you're in bounds, you can be legally hit. This has been messaged, Ross, very, very often to the clubs. And, we've shared that messaging with members of the media because you have a lot of mobile quarterbacks, far more mobile quarterbacks in today's game than in eras of the past. And you have a lot of them that, they'll be heading down the sideline, and then at the last moment they step out of bounds. And so it really puts the defense in a really tough spot. And so it's really message. There's a lot of opportunities for runners, including quarterbacks, to either get out of bounds sooner or to slide, give yourselves up. But if you're going to continue to get additional yardage, if you're in bounds, you can be legally hit and hit hard by the defense. So that message has been made, to the clubs. And so, we've had a number of those, recently. There was I think a play in the Washington game this week, where, there was a hit by the quarterback right at the sideline, but he was in bounds, and it might end up propelling him out of bounds. But if you're hit in bounds and you're knocked out of bounds, that's still okay.
What if the contact, Walt, is right as the foot is touching the white out of bounds? I mean, obviously, until it touches the white, he's in bounds and you can hit him. After he touches the white, he's out of bounds, you can't hit him. What if it's like simultaneous contact, if that makes sense?
Well, typically, if it's simultaneous, the way you describe it, and the defender had committed already, he's usually committed before that simultaneous contact would occur. Then that's usually, would probably be judged, but it is a judgment that the official on the field ends up having to make. Does it rise to the level of unnecessary? And that unnecessary clause, it's a subjective, phrase, and that's what the officials are trained, to recognize is when things are unnecessary or not. But the defender's committed, then the official on the field has to make that decision. Now, replay assist this year was added. If it's clearly that he's in bounds, we can assist with picking up a flag that might have been thrown incorrectly. But in the example you gave, it's got to be clear and obvious. In the example you gave, Ross, of that contact is simultaneous with him hitting into white, that would not be clear and obvious. Whether the official called it on the field or did not, we would have to leave it on the field. But it was I believe the Green Bay and Kansas City game last night. I know you've seen that, or last year. You've seen that play where last year it was a clear hit in bounds, but unfortunately it was called out of bounds. That's the type of play that this year replay assist can help the officials in picking up what would be an incorrect call.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and the time. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Ross. Thank you for having me.
Excellent stuff with Walt Anderson. Speaking of excellent stuff, you guys can get free installation with 48 months, 0% interest, plus an extra $500 off just by visiting westshorehome.com/Ross to redeem. That's westshorehome.com/Ross. By the way, one of you on social media replied to when I said, what questions do you want me to ask Walt Anderson? One of you asked me to ask him about his entry door and whether or not he could use a new door from West Shore Home. I think it was Gerard Berry. That was good. That was good, Gerard. Listen, I'm a huge fan. I know a lot of you have doors that you don't love and could upgrade. And I know almost all of you have bathrooms that could use an upgrade. Listen, the holidays are coming. They'll be here before you know it. What an unbelievable gift to give your significant other, the rest of your family, to give yourself. westshorehome.com/Ross. Think about how much joy you'll have crafting delicious cocktails with Smirnoff after you have the best bathroom of all time. Smirnoff's the world's #1 vodka. It's an official vodka partner of the NFL. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer. Head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross. Two big names going on IR. Dolphins, they're putting Tua on the injured reserve alongside the Colts placing defensive tackle DeForest Buckner as well.
I'm going to make this my Labatt take, presented by Labatt Blue Light, the pristine Canadian Pilsner. Enjoy your beers together as you can live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. I would not play football again if I were Tua, but it's 100% obviously his decision to make, and he should take as much time as he needs. You know, it's interesting, being 45 and having the perspective I have, life after football can be pretty cool also, and he has lifetime financial security for his family. It's not as easy when you're 26 like he is, and I was kind of in that situation, so it's a little bit tougher to see that or think that way when you're Tua's age. One way or the other, I trust and hope he'll make the best decision for him and his family. Fantasy Feast today. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com, as well as Pizza Boy Brewing, Sporticulture, Human Head NYC, and BackOfficeSchedule.com.